Hello, Brobs. We're back with The Golem Remembered 1909 to 1980 Variations of a Jewish Legend by Arnold L. Goldsmith. We pick up with the introduction. The word legend is derived from the Latin word legenda, meaning to be read. The term originally applied to narratives of the Middle Ages, such as Lives of the Saints, which had to be read as a religious duty. However, when the word suggests need not be limited, however, what the word suggests need not be limited to its ecclesiastical usage. In a broader sense, legend may be taken to imply whatever will come to be read by successive ages into an event or record of the past. The ever-new and ever-changing rereading of old sources by new generations of men. Great events and great books have a posthumous story of their own. Each following period puts its inner life into the patient and pliant texts of old. In turn, the familiar documents reward and surprise new inquirers with new answers. Spiegel, Introduction to Legends of the Bible. In this book, I am concerned with a single golem, the most famous one in modern times, the prototype of most of the golemim in 20th century literature, the incredible Golem of Prague. This strange creature sometimes appears as an ominous, slant-eyed, clean-shaven, bald man in a shapeless gray coat, his face half hidden in darkness. Sometimes he looms 10 feet tall, wearing a huge wig, like an inverted wing, nut framing his square face, a 5-pointed amulet fastened to his massive chest. Others see him. I lost my place. Others see him as a white-bearded, mummy-like figure with a green Hebrew letter drawn on his stony forehead. He has even appeared in the shape of a goggle-eyed robot made of gleaming brass nuts, bolts, wheels, and valves. The form changes, but the appeal of the golem in this century to the imagination of artists and their audience is undeniable. Perhaps the strangest modern manifestation of the 16th century golem, however, was unveiled by one of the leading scholars of Jewish mysticism and the symbolism of the Kabbalah, Gershom Scholem. This venerable scholar, dedicating the newly built Israeli computer at the Weizmann Institute at Rehovot on June 17, 1965, named it Golem Number 1, Golem Aleph. In his address, Scholem traced a direct line of descent from the legendary Golem to the new one. He began with the story of Rabbi Judah Loew, who in 1580 is said to have created the man from clay to protect the Jewish community against the increasing threat of anti-Semitism and a pogrom. Although this famous golem is unable to speak, he is apparently able to carry out all of his master's orders. In some subsequent versions of the story, this golem runs amok, and Rabbi Loew has to tear the holy name of God from the creature's mouth or remove a mystical letter from his forehead to reduce him to a pile of clay. In most of these legends, man triumphs over the robot, but Scholem wondered whether the outcome would be the same in the case of the Golem of Rehovot. Let me look that word up. Rehovot. I'll just keep saying it. Whereas the old golem brings water to the rabbi's house, the new golem of Rehovot, I gotta see what it says. It's apparently Rehovot. Whereas the old golem brings water to the rabbi's house, the new golem of Rehovot calculates the movement of the ocean tides. Though the new golem is superior in memory and ability to communicate, unfortunately it suffers occasional memory lapses and breakdowns and makes the modern scholar pray that it will help him bring peace to the world, not destruction. The history of the golem goes back long before 1580. The origin of the word can be traced to the Hebrew golem, which means shapeless matter, ignorant person, dummy. In Yiddish, it usually has the last two meanings and is often an affectionate insult. The word appears only once in the Hebrew Bible, in Psalm 139:16. There, the speaker, perhaps Adam, praises the Creator, acknowledging how God secretly formed his body in the lowest parts of the earth, from which came his unperfect substance, that is, Golem. This single reference led the compilers of the Talmudic Agada to use Golem to mean something uninformed or unformed and imperfect. In short, matter without form. The word has even been used in Talmudic commentary to refer to a woman who has not conceived. Since Shalom and others have traced the appearance of Golem references from a Sanhedrin passage, 38b, describing Adam's first day, through medieval commentaries to modern portrayals of the Golem of Prague, there is no need to repeat this history here. But a few important motifs in the earlier legends must be mentioned as background for the reappearance and variation in 20th century literature. The first is the Golem's huge size, pardon. The second is the special power, a Tellurian force which enables him to have a vision of the future of mankind. The third is the danger of man's conceit in creating artificial life and thus competing with God. To these should be added one other motif which plays an important part in almost all of the 20th century stories about the Golem, his eventually having to be returned to the clay from which he was created. In Udall Rosenberg's collection of legends, Nifla'at Maharim Im Ha-Golem, 1909, the Golem is removed because his mission has been successfully completed, but in most of the other 20th century versions, this creature's life must be taken because he has become a threat either to his creator or the Jewish community. The motif, or the Golem, as a physical threat to his creator, first appears in the writings of German students of Jewish lore in the 17th century, but it does not occur in Hebrew literature until the 18th. Rabbi Elijah Baal Shem of Kelm, who died in 1538, I keep saying 18 for 15s, is the subject of these new stories in both cases. The earliest account of Rabbi Elijah's activities is given in a letter written in 1674 by Christoph Arnold. In this letter, Arnold first generalizes, explaining how the Polish Jews bring life to a man of clay after reciting prayers, fasting, and saying the Shem Ha-Mepharash, the most ancient name of God, Shem Ha-Mepharash, the most sacred name of God, over the prostrate form. The Jews command this Golem to do their housework. As he grows in size daily and becomes a threat to them, they remove the Aleph from his forehead, reducing him to clay. Arnold then tells a story he has heard about Rabbi Elias, that is Elijah, a Baal Shem in Poland, who can no longer reach the Aleph on his Golem's forehead. Threatened by this creature's daily growth, he tricks him by commanding him to remove his master's boots. The ruse works, enabling Rabbi Elias to remove the Aleph when the Golem stoops, but the resulting pile of mud falls on his creator and crushes him. When 2 centuries later, in his autobiography and elsewhere in his writings, Jacob Emden records this story, which he heard from his father, he allows the rabbi to escape with only cuts and bruises. In the 12th and 13th century legends, the destructive power of the Golem does not lie in physical violence to his creators, but in the possibility of idolatry. The actual danger, according to Gershom Shalom in On the Kabbalah and its symbolism, is not the Golem or the force emanating from him, but the man himself. The danger is not that the Golem become autonomous, will develop overwhelming powers. It lies in the tension which the creative process arouses in the creator himself. The motif is best seen in 2 versions of the Golem story recorded in the 13th century. But going back to Jeremiah and his so-called son, Ben Sira, in the 4th century BCE. In the 1st and early 13th century texts, Jeremiah and Ben Sira, warned by the Golem of the danger of being worshipped by their admiring followers, reversed the combination of letters used in his creation, erased the aleph, I should look that up as well, but which strangely is not even mentioned in their act of creation. And the creature dies. In Hebrew, the word for truth, emet, is spelled Aleph Mem Tall, when in the second version the Golem himself uses a knife to remove from his forehead the Aleph beginning the last word in Yahweh, I assume, Elohim, Emet, God is truth. Truth is reduced to dead, Mem Tall. Jeremiah, fearing blasphemy as he reads the new message, God is dead, on the Golem's forehead, heeds the creature's warning that people might worship him and Ben Sira for their awesome power. Reversing the alphabet, he reduces the Golem to dust. Then Jeremiah said, truly, one should study these things only in order to know the power and omnipotence of the Creator of the world, but not in order really to practice them. In the 20th century, it is H. Leavick in The Golem, a dramatic poem in 8 scenes, 1921, and Abraham Rothberg in The Sword of the Golem, 1970, who developed this tension, this inner conflict on the part of the creator, adding a rich new dimension, only hinted at in some of the Talmudic legends. No introduction to the legends of the Golem of Prague would be complete without some mention of the Sefer Yetzirah, butchering that too, I'm sure, one of the fundamental books of Jewish mysticism. This enigmatic book, which Shalom believes was written by a Jewish neo-Pythagorean between the 3rd and 6th centuries, is central to the development of the Kabbalah, according to Rabbi Ben Zion Boxer. In From the World of the Kabbalah, the Sefer Yetzirah traces God's creative presence to the harmonies of numbers and their equivalent symbolism in the Hebrew alphabet. Joining the primary numbers from 1 to 10 and the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet, we get 32 secret paths of wisdom, as this book describes it, through which God created all that has existence. The 10 primary numbers are here called Sephirot, and it is from this text that the concept of the Sephirot was introduced to the later Kabbalah. Though the 10 Sephirot and later Kabbalistic symbolism of the Sephirot are not directly related to the making of a Golem, some medieval commentators took the Sefer Yetzirah as a practical manual of magic rather than as a theoretical guide to wisdom. It is Shalom's contention that this strange book was meant to supply a broad outline with certain astronomical, astrological, and anatomical details of how the cosmos was created basically from the 22 letters, each one of which governs a part of man or a realm of the great world. In the medieval period, the belief in the creation of a Golem was common. This belief can be partly attributed to Kabbalistic doctrine. Shalom clarifies the link between the Kabbalah and the Golem legends in his dedication speech, reminding his audience that the Kabbalists saw the universe as built essentially on the prime elements of numbers and letters, because the letters of God's language reflected in human language are nothing but concentrations of his creative energy. Thus, by assembling these elements in all their possible combinations and permutations, the Kabbalist who contemplates the mysteries of creation radiates some of this elementary power into the Golem. The creation of Golem is then in some way an affirmation of the productive and creative power of man. It repeats, on however small a scale, the work of creation. In short, in his successful performance of this mystical ritual of initiation, culminating in the ecstatic act of creating the Golem, the scholar proves his mastery of secret knowledge. Over the centuries, Kabbalists have argued over the quality of existence found in a Golem. One Talmudic text, Pseudo Sadya, written in the 13th century, credits this creature with the highest level of being and claims that man has the divine power to give the golem both vitality and a soul. A 16th century Talmudist argues that a golem has no ruah, soul, because the Talmud says that he is speechless, but that such a mute creature does have nefesh, the lowest degree of soul, that is, life, for he has vitality and movement. To another, Moses Cordovero, the golem has only hayuth, a special kind of vitality which is higher than the soul of animals. For this reason, a golem does not die in the sense that an animal does, but simply returns to the earth, his natural element. Thus, Cordovero can argue that the person who kills a golem should not be punished because he has broken no law of the Torah. Jewish writers were not the only ones to be fascinated by the golem. Christian writers over the centuries have shared this interest, as evidenced by Christoph Arnold's letter. Both Shalom and Boxer refer to parallels to the golem legends in the Christian community, stories involving Albertus Magnus, St. Thomas Aquinas, and Paracelsus. According to Boxer, the feats of Paracelsus furnished Goethe with the material for his Faust legend. Christian mystics shared the basic doctrinal presuppositions as well as the folklore which flowed from them with their Jewish colleagues of the same period. Shalom even relates some of the golem legends to Christian tales involving the resurrection of the dead by putting the name of God in their mouths or on their arms, and by removing the parchment containing the name in reverse and thus causing their death. Such legends, he adds, were widespread in Italy from the 10th century. As mentioned earlier, the rabbi most prominently identified with the legends of the golem was Judah Bezalel Lowell, circa 1512 to 1609. Somehow the Polish legend about Rabbi Elias of Kelm became transferred to Prague and to Rabbi Lowe during the second half of the 18th century, shortly before Jacob Grimm published his collection of tales. Boxer believes that this transference took place because of Rabbi Lowe's reputation for simplifying and popularizing some of the esoteric doctrines of Jewish mysticism. The popularity of the great figure led the people to endow him with the supernatural powers which supposedly inhered in the mastery of the Kabbalah. Folk imagination is never deterred by facts when it is launched on its work of legend building. That Boxer was apparently on the right track will be seen in Chapter 1 of this study, which explores the life and legends of the great Rabbi Lowe. And we've arrived there, but I have other things to preoccupy me for the time being. Until next time, goodbye. Bye-bye.